Hi there, and welcome to episode 89 of the Ski Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be chatting about the ski areas of Crans Montana and Gstaad in Switzerland. We've got news of a new event closer to home in Glencoe, Scotland, and we're going to be finding out more about Dewerstone, the climate-neutral UK clothing brand. Firstly, though, I'd like to start by thanking Switzerland Tourism for sponsoring the podcast. Now, a little bit later on, I'm going to be talking in detail about Switzerland in the Crans Montana section. But the fact is, I've just been on holiday there with my family. It wasn't a press trip. It's something I chose to book. It was our first family holiday for 2 years, and it was an amazing week. I'm looking forward to chatting a little bit more about that. The travel rules are easing the whole time, and we'll talk more about that shortly in the Battleface travel update. But I would like to thank Switzerland, the whole country, for being the only destination who let our single vaccinated kids in without making them take loads of tests to allow them to go skiing. And it remains the simplest country to travel to. We'll go into those details with Katie shortly. But let me start with some introductions. My name's Ian Martin. I'm joined by 4 guests live on the pod today. Firstly, I'd like to welcome freelance journalist Katie Dartford. Hi, Katie.
Hi there. Hi.
Nice to have you back on the show. We had you on before when you just visited Crans Montana, and today you're going to be telling us about another resort in Switzerland. We're also joined by Dewerstone founder Rory Atton. Hi, Rory. Welcome to your first appearance on the pod.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And I can hear the wind in the background there. We're all in windy parts of the UK, but you're down in the southwest somewhere. Are you in Dartmoor? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of Dartmoor in Princetown. So, yeah, we probably get the weather as good as it gets here.
Also down in the southwest, I think, regular contributor Katie Coe from Battleface Travel Insurance. How are you, Katie?
Morning. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Nice to have you live back on the show. We've had to record a couple of them recently. Always good to see your face. And also, finally, our equipment expert, Al Morgan from skikitinfo.com. Hi, Al. How are you going?
Morning, Ian. Windy as well, like all the others. But yeah, doing well.
Windy as well. I like your T-shirt. You got a special Ski Kit Info branded T-shirt on you today. Are they available to buy on the website?
No, this is actually my uniform.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's start off by asking my guests when they skied or snowboarded last. I happen to know that Al and Katie haven't been out on the slopes. So, Rory, when were you last out on the snow? When did that happen?
I mean, honestly, I can't remember. It was at least 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
I know. For someone that spent all their life skiing, it feels like it's been a long break for me. But excited to get back. I thought it was going to be this season, but, maybe it'll be next season.
Okay. And Katie Dartford, you're going to be telling us about Gstaad. Have you been skiing since then at all?
Yes, I have. Unsurprisingly, I was in Chamonix.
You were in Chamonix. And when was that?
2 weeks ago, maybe. Yeah, about then.
And how was it when you were there?
Yeah, it really needs new snow. I mean, I was up on the Vallee Blanche, and the crevasses were really open, and
okay,
I had to stop a lot earlier than usual to walk out.
Right, I think that may have been resolved since you went 2 weeks ago, because actually I was looking at some photos and some video by Gavin Foster from Ski Weekend. I don't know if you know him, and the conditions look pretty good. That was last year.
Yeah, I have heard. Typically, I haven't been able to go since then. But
we're going to be having a few snow reports and checking the latest situation shortly. But first, let's turn to the Battleface travel update with Katie Coe from Battleface. Life is getting easier in terms of travel. It's been, we've had some podcasts where we've been editing and changing at the last minute because they keep pulling the rug from underneath our feet. But at the moment, if there's any news, it all seems to be going in the right direction. Do you want to bring us up to date with the latest situation, Katie?
That's right, Ian. As you say, after a very tricky start to the season, restrictions have eased, and British skiers are now able to make it out here to the Alps and to all the ski resorts and enjoy the slopes. And bookings are looking really good for the rest of the season as skiers are taking advantage of this easing of restrictions. EasyJet have put on an extra 50,000 additional seats on flights departing to ski destinations.
Cool. And, one of the drivers, I know lots of people, it probably perhaps came too late for people who are looking to go out at half term. But coming back into the UK, one of the key things there is now easier in terms of the fact there's no day 2 test if you're vaccinated.
That's right. Yeah, it's much easier to travel back into the UK. There's no day 2 test for vaccinated now since the 11th of February. So That's been 10 days so far. So that's really great news in terms of bringing the costs down of travel.
And you mentioned that, people had great half-term holidays in France. I mean, I said I didn't go to France, and one of the reasons was the testing side of things. But actually, for teenagers, for 12 to 15-year-olds, that's also become simpler since we last spoke.
Yes, it has. Yeah, it's much easier for kids to prove their status because the NHS COVID Pass is now available for 12 to 15-year-olds, which is fantastic news.
And in terms of getting into France as well, it's also a bit easier as well, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, France have dropped their requirement for a negative COVID test for vaccinated travellers, which came as really welcome news. And also, there's no test or form for Switzerland, which is really good news as well.
Yeah, I mean, the form filling, isn't particularly onerous. We still had to do it going into Switzerland and coming back into the UK. But while we were out in Switzerland, the rules about masks changed. So when we arrived, you had to wear masks going into shops and this and that. And you were meant to have your COVID passes checked going into restaurants. But to be honest with you, I don't know, maybe it's a bit like in the UK. That wasn't rigorously applied. And during the course of the week, those rules were dropped. So you do have to wear masks still on public transport and in closed ski lifts. But that's it in Switzerland now. And as you say, no more tests.
That's right. Yeah, those rules regarding mask wearing were dropped on the 17th of February, so just last week.
And you mentioned France, and there's no requirement for a negative test for vaccinated travellers. That definition of vaccinated travellers does require a bit of attention, doesn't it, in relation to boosters?
Yes, that's right. 18 plus need boosters within 4 months of a second COVID jab, which is down from 7 in order to use lifts and restaurants. So that's definitely a change in requirements. So we would urge everybody to check their COVID vaccination date. Yeah,
so definitely get a booster to ensure that you are definitely fully vaccinated. And there's a similar situation in Austria. I can't remember what the deadline is there.
Yeah, that's right. It requires boosters after 180 days, but the rules seem to be easing the whole time. As we just said, Switzerland, no masks in most places. In Italy, no masks outside. So as we go through the season, the rules and restrictions are definitely lifting, and hopefully that's going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much hoping. I've certainly read that there's an intention within France to be able to draw back on the pass vaccinal and the pass sanitaire. And, our next family trip in April, my kids will be double vaccinated by then. So it shouldn't be an issue. But it'd be nice if we didn't have to muck around showing QR codes and all that kind of stuff.
I'm in a similar situation. We're off to Chamonix at the end of March. So hoping that things have continued to ease. And my children as well are going to get their second vaccination between now and then. So hopefully that will mean for easy skiing.
Cool. Well, and I know for you, I think that trip has been deferred 2 years, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Really looking forward to getting out.
So, so that will be really good. So just as a reminder then, the reason we have you on the show, Battleface, it does offer travel insurance and it offers ski insurance. Do you want to just clarify what is on offer there?
Yeah, absolutely. Battleface offers travel insurance, and we have a winter sports add-on. So please do visit battleface.com to check out the quote for your upcoming trip. And you can also check any requirements, entry restrictions on the Sherpa add-on, which we have as our travel hub on the website.
Yeah, that's really good. I've used that as well. It's always up to date. You can have a look on that and see what's required. As it is, it's getting simpler. I'll tell you, Katie, that last night we went round to see some friends, or yesterday afternoon, I was saying to them they need to get travel insurance for their daughter who's going to join us on that trip to Les Deux Alpes. And I said to them, try battleface.com. And they said, that sounds a bit hardcore. And I went through that whole of that story about how Battleface was formed. And regular listeners will remember that I interviewed Sasha, the founder of Battleface, about that whole history of originally, the company was offering insurance to people, to NGOs and people traveling to different difficult destinations. And then you started, being able to insure people when the FCO were advising against travel. You could still get insurance.
That's right. Absolutely, yeah. So our sort of raison d'etre is ensuring journalists traveling out to difficult situations and environments. We've actually just relaunched our partnership with the International Federation of Journalists, the IFJ, and Reporters Sans Frontières as well, RSF. So, we are constantly helping journalists be able to travel and get out there and report from the front line, as well as from the Winter Olympics, from all sorts of destinations worldwide. I also think it should be worth noting here, never underestimate the cost of being airlifted from a mountain. You know, we did some research a few months ago, and we found that people think that the cost of airlifting from the slopes is about £3,000, but it's actually close to 10,000. But, you know, really, really important to take your travel insurance out, especially when you're looking at precarious conditions like snow.
For sure. Well, I mean, you know, not getting travel insurance would be madness as far as I'm concerned. So there you go, listener. If you are going out on a trip, make sure you're covered, and have a look at battleface.com for more information. So that's brilliant, Katie. Thanks very much. Now, lots of people have been lucky enough to spend the last week in a ski resort. What is the snow like right now? We've got a couple of snow reports that have been sent in to listen to, but let's start off by looking at Crans Montana, where I've just been. You know, it was my second trip to Crans Montana. It was very different from my first one. My first one was in December 2020, just before everything closed down. I was just going ski touring and I was on my own. I'll put a link to that report in the show notes. This time it was a family holiday. And the reason we chose Switzerland was principally because of the access for my single vaccinated children. And I was looking around for availability and there wasn't much. Initially, I was thinking about Spiers, where I stayed in the summer when I was doing some trail running. And then, you know, we looked at Crans Montana. That's where we ended up booking. I booked a property, a hotel through the Crans Montana website, just like a 3-star family room. We booked flights from Southampton, very expensive to fly at half term, but I worked out that if you're prepared to leave late from the UK and leave really early at 6 a.m. from Geneva, that was like a 4:30 start coming back, it can be affordable to fly. We hired a car via Holiday Autos, and that ended up being delivered via Sixt, the rental company. We got a really nice Mercedes, which surprised me. And so we managed to get 5.5 days skiing out of that. And so my thoughts are, Crans Montana, there's 140 kilometers of skiing there. It's half term. There were no queues at all. It was really bizarre. I was really surprised, to see the lack of queues. I think on the final day, which was a Friday, there must have been people who'd come for the weekend or something. It was a bit busier. But in the week, we basically just went straight onto lifts. And, for half term week, I wasn't expecting that at all. And, good for a family. They've got like a proper pike and an Olympic-sized half pipe there, of which I believe there's only 5 around. We all skied in that half pipe. Oh, my God. It makes you realize how those Olympic athletes, how talented and how brave those Olympic athletes are. Just going halfway up the wall of the half pipe was terrifying enough to turn around. It was brilliant fun. The kids really enjoyed that, and they got like a mini pipe as well and a mini park. There's some massive kickers down there, and then there's some really lovely runs down through the trees to Aminona, where you can catch a bus back into the ski system. So most of it, was reds and fairly easy blacks, I would say. It's not a ski in, ski out type of place. Compared to some of the French resorts. You've got 3 access points, really. But they have these navettes that run through the town. And as you expect in Switzerland, they're ultra reliable. They would arrive within, if I look at my watch, 10 to 20 seconds of when they were meant to arrive, they'd come in. So you always knew exactly how long, once we worked out how long it took to walk from the hotel to the lift stop, to the bus stop. Perfect. And then you could link into the system. The other thing I really liked about Crans for us was they have something called the hotel pass. So rather than buying a 6-day lift pass, this is much cheaper and more flexible. You just buy your lift pass by the day. And bizarrely, it turns out to be less expensive than if you bought a 6-day pass in a row. And if it's a bad weather day, which it was at one point, I went out. I went ski touring that day. But the kids, and my wife, just decided to take an easy day, and we didn't buy a ticket that day. And it saves you money, and we ended up spending money in town elsewhere. Went down to the brilliant Alaia Chalet that Katie has tried before. My kids are on those trampolines that you were on. I mean, that as an option for a non-ski day, it's pretty cool down there, isn't it?
Oh, I thought it was great. So much you can do. You really
was it busy when you went?
No, not really. It was early evening.
Yeah, well, it was a bit busier when we went along. I think probably perhaps because it was a bad weather day, but my kids loved it. So on the trampolines, throwing themselves into the foam pits and things like that. But also they got some scooters and went into the kind of skate park and went over the jumps. Did you try that at all?
No, I would have liked to, but I always end up hurting myself somehow on those things.
Okay, well, it was pretty terrifying watching them go over these jumps. But again, you just land into the foam pit, and they had a brilliant time. And so that was a great bad weather option there. And, cost, Switzerland has a reputation as being very expensive. I don't normally go, or we don't normally go at half term because it costs a lot more than skiing at any other time of the year. We went to the Pyrenees in 2020. And that was really just to write an article to prove that it doesn't have to cost a huge amount of money. But this one, we hadn't had a holiday for a couple of years. I decided to bite the bullet. And when we got there, little tribute to Jim, who used to present the show with me. He always used to refer to Swiss francs as chuffs. They're CHF. I think if you think of Swiss francs in terms of chuffs, instead of like being real money, it makes it a lot easier to kind of deal with it. Just don't convert it back. And just get on with it. And to be honest with you, it wasn't so bad. We had a bit of bonus at breakfast. We were one of those families who sneakily made up some sandwiches and stuck them in our bag to take with us. And then we bought like a kind of chips and soup and things at lunchtime. And in the evenings it wasn't so bad. So I think the cost was entirely comparable with skiing in France. I didn't think it was more expensive at all. So that's my review of Crans Montana. Really enjoyed that trip. And let's have a listen to a couple of snow reports from other people who've just been out in the Alps.
Hi Ian, it's Babsy. We just came back from the South Tyrol. We went to Dreizehn in the Dolomites. So the Dolomiti Super Ski. We got there Saturday before last. Lovely blue skies. Very, very cold. -13, -14 when we went out there. The snow conditions were okay, a little bit icy, a little bit scraped, so they needed fresh snow. But on the Tuesday, they predicted 20%, we had 30%. So they've got a really good base, amazing, really amazing now. They were back to sunshine on the Wednesday for the rest of the week, and they are having more fresh snow predicted this week. So amazing. Okay, all the best, Ian. Bye.
Hi, Ian. Alex from 150 Days of Winter with a snow report from Courchevel and the Three Valleys. Before I start, I must first congratulate Chloe Trez-Pouche from Val Thorens for her Winter Olympics silver medal in the women's border cross event. A great achievement in a challenging sport. But back to the snow report. After January that felt more like March, the weather has started to turn, with regular snow falling in February. As I record this, I'm looking out at a blizzard that is dumping 40 centimetres of fresh snow outside. The piste conditions have been good but hard, resulting in many accidents of out-of-control holidaymakers who underestimate their stopping distances, resulting in not only injuries to them, but to innocent bystanders. The tourist office have asked people, among many things, to check their speed while they're skiing. Due to hard snow conditions, the affluent Courchevel visitors have been sacrificing their peace time for terrace time with Mr. Gin and Mr. Tonic at their hotels, or long boozy lunches at pretentious mountain restaurants. How very Courchevel. And on that, I wish you a safe half-term skiing, and I will no doubt talk to you again in March.
This is Stephen Spiers with a quick snow update for Glencoe Mountain Resort in Scotland for Saturday 19th of February 2022. Finally, thanks to Storm Eunice, the season kicked into high gear. Wind-packed powder arriving to fill in the top runs in particular, which with deep gullies do require quite a bit more snow to be suitable for skiing. All the runs were open yesterday, except for the very steep 40-degree or so flypaper run, a black run which was closed due to the avalanche risk. For those that don't know, Glencoe, it really is a mini freeride resort with plenty of opportunity for safer off-piste. Saturday was really no exception to that, with ski anywhere very much what people were doing, with just having to watch out for the occasional kind of rocky outcrop when you were off the main pistes. March is a big month coming up for Glencoe, with the new cafe opening hopefully, and also the new Rannoch chair set to get Department of Transport approval. Finally, some more snow is forecast for the coming week, quite a bit actually by the looks of it. So we're really hopeful up in Scotland to see if this season can last until late April or early May, which it often does. Thanks then, bye.
Great, so thanks to all our contributors for those snow reports. I didn't mention the snow in Crans Montana. You know, Katie said it was thinning a bit when she was in Chamonix a couple of weeks ago. The snow cover was great. It snowed about 20 centimetres in midweek, but the temperatures are weird. It kind of went from -5 up to +10 at one point, and it was getting a bit churny lower down. But bizarrely, I see today it's already back down to -5 again, and they've got a 30 centimetre snowstorm coming in. So it's looking good for the Alps there. Now, we had a report just then from Stephen Spiers in Glencoe, and while we're in Scotland and Glencoe, let's have a listen to another interview I recently recorded with Neil Dalgleish. Now, I met Neil at the Birmingham Ski Show, and he told me about a new event called the Mighty Coe, and I caught up with him to find out a little bit more about it. I'm here today with Neil Dalgleish. He's from an agency called Hillside Outside, but I'm particularly interested. We met at the Birmingham show where you told me that you're going to be putting on a new event in March called the Mighty Coe. And there's a clue in the name. It's going to be at Glencoe Mountain Resort. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about it, Neil.
So the Mighty Coe is, I think, the UK's first on-snow ski and snowboard festival. The idea kind of came about during the kind of lockdown wanderings around the hill. Around the hills, we couldn't go very far, and this time last year, I think we were knee deep in really good snow. And weren't allowed to go very far. But anyway, we were all kind of touring and doing what we could, and gives you time to think, doesn't it? And so sadly, we all had too much time to think last winter. Yeah. At least those of you who were stuck up in Scotland had the opportunity to get on the snow. Yeah, we were fantastically lucky and actually had some incredible powder days. I mean, I'm in the Scottish borders right now, and just outside here, literally half a mile from the house, there was knee-deep powder. It was unbelievable. Our kind of business is outdoor events, and we've always been about trying to put on, whether it's mostly mountain biking and cycling events or trail running or other outdoor stuff, things that are good fun to take part in. Sometimes racing, sometimes not. But one of the ones that we do is one of the UK's biggest sort of mountain bike festivals called Tweedlove, based in the Scottish borders. So what we do is we work with the brands, and people can try bikes, etc., and go out and ride on fantastic terrain. And also, importantly, the social side of it, meet up with like-minded souls and have a good time and have a beer and whatnot. And it struck me on those wanders that didn't exist for skiing and snowboarding. And especially last year when all of us were, taught that we're into talking about. So many people were trying to find ski touring stuff or split boards. You just couldn't get hold of anything, and people didn't know what they should be looking for necessarily. It was quite hard to find out. It's a little bit opaque. I just thought, why don't we try and do something like we do in mountain biking for skiing and boarding? And And another, who knows, another career choice down the line, I would have been an instructor and ended up goodness knows where, but I ended up this way and doing bikes. So it's always been a love, and always something I wanted to do. So I spoke to Andy Meldrum at Glencoe Mountain Resort about the idea, and we basically decided to have a go. So March 26th, 27th will be the first Mighty Coe.
Excellent. We've had Andy Meldrum on the podcast before, because he told us about the summer ski session they do at Glencoe, regardless of the amount of snow that's there. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But so therefore, at the Mighty Coe, then it's going to be over a couple of days at Glencoe Resort, and there are going to be all sorts of sessions going on. You said, like, for example, people are interested in finding out about ski touring. So there's that. I think maybe avalanche training as well, be able to try kit, things like that. Who's it aimed at?
It's aimed at, I guess the biggest focus is people who are interested and curious about backcountry, but actually it's aimed wider than that. It's everybody who just wants to come together and kind of celebrate our love of the snow and of sliding. The biggest focus in the brands will probably be on kind of touring kit, Alpine kit, split boards, snowboards. But, there's a family element to it as well. So there's stuff if you bring the kids, whatever. The main partner who's got behind it to help us off and give us some support to get us started was the North Face, along with a lot of other brands, which will, when we release all the details, all those brands who are bringing kit to demo and expo and whatnot, they'll be revealed. I can't list them right now, I'm afraid.
So we've got an exclusive about the event itself, but not about exactly what's going to be there. But it's going to be on slope and off slope, a combination of both things, right?
Yeah. So up on the plateau, there will be an event village with a bar. It's not going to be not quite the Folly Deuce, but if we can have a bit of kind of fun snow festival vibes, that's certainly the intention. And so various trade stands, big tents, hopefully a screen, and basically a little festival village will be up on the hill, and from there you'll be able to visit the various brands who are expoing or have demo kit, find out from those experts what's the right stuff for you, and for quite a few of the brands you'll be able to actually just go and try it. So we'll have a kind of skin track marked out, and on some of the brands will be having their own dedicated ambassadors leading sort of little backcountry trips. There will also be the chance to join organised sort of we're going to call it backcountry taster, and as the kind of shorter intro one for people who maybe haven't had that before, and we'll have a chance to go with an instructor, learn the basics of skinning, whether that's on split board or skis, a little taste of side country or off-piste backcountry, and then there will be all-day backcountry rider sessions where you get to go and actually sample some of the glorious off-piste off the back at Glencoe.
Cool. It sounds great. I mean, I've been trying to do a trip up to Scotland for a couple of years now. Last winter, it just didn't work out. I considered going up last month anyway, but the snow conditions weren't quite right. Hopefully we'll have good conditions for that. I think the dates are the 26th and 27th of March. Is that correct?
Yeah, by a very scientific look at the averages, that weekend or around about that time of year is probably the most reliable for. We usually get late season anyway, so usually by then there's a decent base and some good snow conditions, and the weather has usually calmed down by then, so we have the most chance of weather and conditions.
Cool, excellent. And will it cost to attend?
You'll buy your lift pass. There'll be a special lift pass on the Glencoe Mountain Resort site, or you can get it through the Mighty Coe site. The plan is it's just going to be just a little bit more expensive than your normal lift pass. I think it's going to be very, very good value because for all the stuff that's going on, you get your lift pass so you can ski for the day or the weekend as usual, but you've got all that stuff too.
Cool. It sounds great. Well, for more information then, listener, you can go to the mightycoe.com. And Neil, if I can fit it into my schedule, I'll definitely be there as well. I'd love to try it. I'm really keen to go ski touring in Scotland and just to go skiing in Scotland. So that would be amazing. Cool. All right. That's brilliant, Neil. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm not sure I can fit that into our calendar, but Al, I think you might be going up to Glencoe for that event.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited. It's great to have an event like that on our doorstep, in the UK. And Scotland's had a tough start, but the conditions are really coming in the last week. I am so excited about that happening.
Cool. And there's obviously lots of opportunity to try kit and to ski touring lessons or introduction to ski touring, etc.
Absolutely. So there's loads of brands going up for people to demo kit, try it out. Try before you buy if you want. Just see what's out there on the market for the coming season, so for next winter as well. And they've got hosted guide sessions to go ski touring, go and give it a go. They've got an event on the middle night on the Saturday night.
Yeah,
sounds really, really fun.
Cool. Well, hopefully you can tell us about it when you get back from that one, Al. That would be great. Before we go on to talk about Gstaad, I'd like to thank everybody who's voted for the Ski Podcast so far in the Sports Podcast Awards. All votes have to be in before the end of the month, and I think this will be our last podcast before then. So if you enjoy the podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes to vote for us at sportspodcastawards.com, and I'll put a link into the show notes. Right, let's move on to Gstaad. Never been too sure about the pronunciation of that. We did have a feature in the show about it before, but Katie, thanks for joining us again. You've been in Switzerland again this time. It's not a resort I've been to. What were your impressions?
Yeah, I went at the end of January. And honestly, it was so quiet. The piece, you could, like, it's pre-Alp. It's meant to be sort of fairly mellow, the skiing that is. And you could really just let rip. There was nobody, just nobody. And yet the restaurants were quite full. So for my first day, I skied around the Egli area where there's a new restaurant. And it was exactly, like I said, the pistes were perfect. There hadn't been much fresh snow at that point, but everything was in great conditions. But yeah, I mean, it's quite mellow, I'd say. Lots of nice, wide reds, plenty of blues. So you can really kind of just go there and relax and enjoy yourself. And then obviously another day someone challenged me saying, well, didn't challenge me, but I took it as a challenge. You can ski from Schonried all the way around to the other side to Zweisman and not take any lift twice. So I thought, I'm going to do that. So I did the whole circuit like by myself, and it was like exactly the same, lovely, open, mellow. I was all by myself. I couldn't believe it. I was like doing Instagram lives, like, there is no one here. And it's just wide open piece. I can just let rip.
Cool. And how big is the ski area then? How many kilometers a piece are we thinking about?
I'll have to double check that. I think it's about 200. But I wasn't there in January. I was there early January, and I'd gone to Glacier 3000. So if you do want something a bit more extreme and more kilometers, you can go down there. It's on the same pass. And that is proper hardcore. So you can do whatever you want, really. If you want mellow, if you want extreme.
Okay. And you said, and you said, about relaxing, and that the restaurants were kind of fuller than the piece. Interestingly, in Crans Montana, that was the case as well. I said there weren't any queues on the mountain, but every evening, if you wanted a restaurant, you had to book it in advance, so you wouldn't be able to get a table. I was like, where are these people in the day? But maybe they're actually just chilling out. Is Gstaad the type of place for that?
Definitely. I mean, the whole thing is like to go and walk around the town and look at all the buildings, and there's statues donated by some of the celebrities that have lived there, like Julie Andrews or Liz Taylor, Bernie Ecclestone's hotel. It's just about looking at that and the galleries and the shops and visiting the spa. And I also did a horse and cart ride, and first of all, this is gonna be really cheesy, but it was brilliant. It was actually on some quite I was like gripping the side of the cart, like some of the roads are fairly steep, and it was pretty icy, and I was like, oh my god.
Was it on wheels or was it on a sled?
No, it was on wheels. I could call it, it's on wheels. It's not a slow ride.
I kind of imagining it is more of a carriage than a cart.
Perhaps. Yes. It was nice. We were all
I've seen like in Zermatt, I think the Zermatterhof, likes to transport people from the station to the hotel in one of those.
Yeah, but this is proper. We went on it was like an hour tour around a lake.
Great.
So it was a proper day out.
Yeah, and in terms of the shopping, you mentioned there's some classy shops there. Any brands that?
Like you've got your Pradas and things like Gucci's and things like that. So
okay, spend much time there?
No, I just looked. I window shopped.
Yeah, actually, Prada were visible in Crans Montana as well, because bizarre sort of thing where all the lift pylons have got like a Prada, the red line for Prada. It's the same in Gstaad, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Like I get the association. It just seems bizarre to have a Prada branded lift pylon. But,
but then I don't know. It's the same in Courchevel. Yeah, they just associate themselves with that brand, and it's glamorous. It's meant to be. They're trying to promote themselves as glamorous. And,
I mean, it is very interesting, and I'm pretty sure Al has just said he wants to say something. I'm pretty sure I know what he's going to say, but go on, chip in. What's your thoughts on Prada?
bizarrely, Prada make some ski and snowboard clothing for some mainstream, full-on, proper cool brands, and I think the people that wore those brands might be a bit surprised that I'm not allowed to say who the brands are. But yeah, if you're big into snowboarding, then it's really surprising who they make clothing for.
So are you saying to me that Prada make them, but they're not branded as Prada?
Yeah.
They're branded as these other brands. Okay, they've
Yeah.
been right. Okay. What I thought you were going to say was this issue at the Olympics where one of the snowboarders had a Prada snowboard. And when she displayed it, I will put the link to the show into the show notes, but she did qualifying on the Prada board and she had a board, upside down. And the logo, you had the red line and the logo was very visible on there as being Prada. And the IOC said, oh, you're not allowed to show brands. Now, her point was, well, this is my snowboard and it's made by Prada. You're not saying that to people who are, using Burton or something like that. And they made her get a Sharpie in red and color out the white of the Prada. So it ended up just being a red strip until they changed their mind later on. So, evidently Prada are much more visible in skiing and snowboarding than we might have anticipated. Cool. Well, okay, that's brilliant, Katie. Thanks for that. Actually, Al, we're going to move on to your area now, the equipment side of things. And it's brilliant today to have Rory from Dewerstone with us. The brand came up for me recently because I discovered that you've got B Corp accreditation, and we'll come on to that. But I wondered if you could just tell us to start off with a little bit about the history of the brand and how you got started.
Yeah, for sure. So Dewerstone is an outdoor lifestyle brand based down in Dartford National Park. We primarily make clothing for people that love the outdoors, from t-shirts to hoodies to board shorts and sunglasses. We have a couple of our own retail stores now. So we've got one here in Princetown, we've got one in Totnes, and we have one in Gili Trawangan in Indonesia. You can find the brand.
Hold on.
That always throws people.
How does that work? That doesn't seem the obvious next extension.
No, I mean, we do a fair bit of manufacturing out there. And then I was out there just before they had those big earthquakes in 2018. And I had quite a lot of local friends displaced from that. And I wanted to build an infrastructure out there so that if the worst should happen again, we'd be able to help local people. And then we built the store, start of the first lockdown, thinking it was all going to be over in a month. And the store went on to build and distribute food parcels to over 10,000 people in the local area during the height of the pandemic.
Great. Well, that's clearly going to fit in with our later conversation. I am interested in those earlier years. And what was your background before you founded Dewerstone?
So for a long time, I was just chasing snow. So we did back-to-back winters, South America, North America, New Zealand, Europe. Spent a lot of time in Utah and Colorado, and ticked off some amazing skiing. And then eventually I was working for Surefoot, working in London, in Verbier, in Park City and Colorado for them. And then left for the sunny climate of Devon and set up Dewerstone just after that. So that's kind of how it started.
Rory, I met you when you were at Surefoot and did some amazing boot liners for me, because you did foam injected liners there, and then just watch your journey as you went over to Dartmoor, and you were printing tees at first, if I remember, and then you made some wooden frame sunglasses, and they were just so cool when you brought them out because they felt really different to the resin glasses that we've seen in other stuff, and it just felt a lot more natural. Why did you decide to go down that line? Because it was a bit of a sideways step from the t-shirts.
Yeah, I mean, so many brands, start out by printing T-shirts in the garage, and that's just because it's fairly accessible and you can do small runs and things like that. But with the sunglasses, I was actually in the Gili Islands, and we got lost about 3 pairs of Oakleys because they sank. And then that's when we got into the wooden sunglasses because they float. And whilst that's not necessarily something that we do a lot of now, we still have floating ones in the range. That was why I got into it, because I was just losing them over the side of boats, and making some sunglasses that float seemed like a great idea, and wood was the natural choice.
That seems quite a nice time, because you do a lot of stuff with. I remember right at the start that we were having conversations around kayaking and you do things with like the Senders guys. How's that married with Dewerstone?
I mean, I think like lots of good link ups like that, it's all based on, personal relationships. So I've known Bren, who's one of the senders guys, for quite a long time now. And then I was out in Uganda for a kayaking competition quite early on in the Dewerstone life, and just I went out for this competition that we'd sponsored and just spent time with Bren and Dane and Adrian and Caleb on the water. And it would always be one of those events where it was like 30 of the world's best kayakers and me on this massive river in Uganda. It just, the whole thing just comes about by just, building that friendship and wanting to get involved at the deep end.
And you do clothing with Senners, don't you? So one of the super cool things that Dewerstone does, and the story that I like around it, is the shorts that you do, Life Shorts Pro. It's become, are they one of your climate neutral garments? Is that kind of the flagship product for you? Is that one of your most proud productions?
Yeah, definitely. So the Life Shorts Pro are this, we always talk about this short that we always wanted to create. And the reality is we were like, let's make a short for everything. And we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't really understand margins or how expensive it was to make things, or if you put an amazing pocket on a product, that's going to cost a lot of money. We just made these shorts because we wanted to make them and didn't think about anything else. And they've got a whole bunch of innovative features, like the Velcro overlap fly. There's no laces. They're made from plastic bottles. They've got these amazing pockets. Yeah, we just wanted to make this short that we liked, and it didn't really matter if anyone else liked it, but it turns out they did. And it's really definitely a bit of a halo product for us now,
because they are super cool shorts. That little, it's like a surfboard leash on the Velcro on the waist. But so one of the beautiful things with that is just that story around it, how it's climate neutral. So I mean, was that part of the start of the journey into Beat Court? How did you get into your kind of accreditation route? Because it's a big journey, that, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, we really started out with 1% for the planet, where you join 1% for the planet and you give 1% of your annual turnover to environmental non-profits. So not a percentage of profit, it's a percentage. It's 1% of your entire turnover. And
yours was 2%, over 2% in 2021, wasn't it? That was a tough year, and you've absolutely smashed that.
Yeah, in 2021 it was 2.24%, I think, and that was both to environmental and social causes. So yeah, 1% for the planet, and then climate neutral. We joined that because whilst we fully understand that just offsetting isn't going to solve all of the world's problems, it's not an excuse not to do it. So we sort of, the climate neutral process taught us about how to measure, how to work on what was going on with our carbon footprint, where to make the biggest changes, so how we could reduce it. And then at the end, when you know how much you're creating, you can then offset that. But the biggest thing for us is the measurement and the reduction, because you can't reduce what you haven't measured. And then it all becomes part of that. So if you're going to go through that measurement and that reduction, you might as well offset it while you're doing it at the same time. And for us, we found that there's lots of things you can do here, like you can change your energy and you can change lots of things in your building. But as a brand that ships things from overseas, the biggest impact we could have would be to change our shipping from air freight to sea freight. And we did that in 2019, and we halved our carbon footprint that year just by that.
That is very impressive, Rory, and I'm really enjoying finding out more about it. And before we spoke today, I've been all over your website reading about everything, and it's laudable, and you've been recognised for it. Just in relation to shipping from overseas by sea freight, when you're working in fashion, you have quite the lead times and delivery times are really crucial, aren't they? How do you manage to balance design of your new collection with being able to get them delivered?
I mean, honestly, it's an absolute nightmare, and this last 12-18 months for shipping has not made it any easier. But one thing that has kind of worked for us is, as we've grown, we're still the small guy. So if you want to get your stuff made in time with any factory that you're using, you have to be in earlier. You have to be one of the first. So we might attend a trade show, and we might we'll be taking orders from retailers, but really we've predicted what they're going to buy already. And we've got our orders in way in advance of that, so we can get them shipped in time.
And that's obviously a real skill. Part of that is instinct, isn't it? But I think I also read on the website that you've been working with the same factory in China since you started the business.
Pretty much, yeah. We've worked with a handful of factories, all of which that I've been to, I've spent time in, and that's really important to me, so that I know what's going on. But I also want to be part of that production process. I want to know every single aspect of what's happening, and really be involved on the factory floor.
Cool. And what about B Corp then? I would imagine most listeners haven't heard of that. Maybe they have. We speak in terms of ski resorts that the Flocon Vert is an accreditation that ski resorts can get to show their sustainability. Do you want to just give us a brief explanation about what B Corp is?
In short, B Corp is a business that meets the highest standards of social and environmental impact, and it's a commitment to using business as a force for good. What that really means is that the B Corp process looks at every aspect of the business, and they break that down into 5 different areas. Those areas being governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. But there's no stone left unturned. So yes, there's a huge kind of what we see as sustainability angle, but there's a whole thing around HR and supply chain and your customers and really everything. So the sustainability side is colossal within it, but it is only one part of it. And actually, the whole B Corp thing really is almost like a HR-led thing. And then they have this framework called the B Impact Assessment. And that is what the businesses run through to get there. And that B Impact Assessment is completely free. You can just, as a business, sign up to it, and you can see kind of where your business sits at the minute through this series of 5 areas and 200 points worth of questions. Yeah, so I would say it took us a year in sort of thinking about it and being like, we want to take on this B Corp challenge. And then a year of really being like, we're going to go for it. This is the point where we start measuring and collecting all that data, because the B Corp process is based on your previous financial year or the previous 12 months. So it's not about being like, oh, we're going to do this, or, we're going to collect this data. It's all about, we have collected this data and we have done this. There's no option to be like, we're going to be a better business in the future. You have to have been a better business already in order to gain those points.
Well, congratulations on getting that. I know it's very rigorous, and it's a great achievement. And apart from that, you only get it because you're doing good work as a business in the first place. And you did mention it's not just about sustainability. Some of our listeners will be familiar with Protect Our Winters. I understand there's a new partnership with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came across Protect Our Winters when I did a carbon literacy training course with them. Got to know a little bit more about what they're about, what they're doing, and how they're going about it. And I just felt that we really kind of wanted to be involved in that. We wanted to support it. And whilst Dewerstone's not necessarily a ski or snowboard brand, I love skiing and I love the mountains, and I want to help protect them so that they're still there in the future years. So if my business can help with that, it's something we want to be involved with.
That it sums up your mission statement better than anything. So, listener, if you'd like to find out more about Dewerstone, have a look in the show notes. And Rory, thank you very much for joining us today. While we're still in that sustainability corner, it seems the right time to include another interview I recorded recently with Al Judge. Now, regular listeners might recognise his name as he contributed to our special episode about electric vehicles and ski resorts. That was with his Alaia Mountain Holidays hat on, but Al is also one of the key members of the Montan Vert team in Morzine. And I keep going on about these guys, but they're doing really great work to make Morzine of Oriaz a more sustainable destination. And when I read about their new Alpine Express Pass, which offers discounts all over the resort to people who travel by train, I wanted to find out more. So let's have a listen to that. Right, I'm here today with Al Judge from Alaia Mountain Holidays, but you're here today with a different hat on, the Montan Vert hat. How are you, Al?
I'm very well, thank you. Excited about the fact that we've finally got tourists back, or British tourists back in the resort of Morzine.
Yeah, it's excellent. I should have said that, of course, you are based in Morzine. And, the Montan Vert organisation, I referred to it a lot of times on the podcast. I'm such a huge fan of the work that you do there. It's all geared towards trying to make Morzine as sustainable a destination as possible. Since we first spoke, I think we were on the podcast. I had you on the electric vehicles in the Alps special that we did quite a while ago. I'll put a link to the show notes. But since then, Morzine has been accredited with the Flocon Vert, which is not awarded to many resorts. I believe that's correct, isn't it, Al?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it was awarded a few months ago, and after a kind of sustained campaign from the town and the tourist office and general businesses around the resort, they're able to, prove that they're able to meet the credentials required. So that was really, really nice achievement.
Yeah, and the threshold for that is set, very high, and really it doesn't surprise me to hear that Morzine of Oriaz has been, given that accreditation. And the reason we're here today is I noticed something else, another project that you've launched through Montagne Verte, and that is the Alpine Express Pass. And it really piqued my attention. I wondered if you'd like to just explain to us, in basic terms, what it is.
So we one of our objectives at Montagne Verte is to reduce the carbon emissions associated with tourism in the Alps, and more specifically in the Valley of Morzine and the surrounding area. When you look at studies of tourism in the Alps, it gets quoted that anywhere between 60 and about 85% of the carbon emissions as a result of a ski holiday actually come from the transport to and from the resort. So we felt, as an association, this was an area that we could potentially have quite a big impact from. The actual process of skiing itself on a normally an electrically operated communal ski lift is actually relatively small in terms of carbon emissions, but the transport to and from, and particularly flights, which is the way that most people get to ski resorts, is a place that we can really have a big impact if we can reduce the amount of people that come by plane. However, getting from Northern European countries into Morzine on a train is quite tricky. It can take a little bit of getting to navigate the online booking portals. And so what we wanted to do was try and incentivize people to come to Morzine by train by making it a little bit easier. A number of businesses from around the area come together to all offer discounts, and those discounts range from ski passes to accommodation, so hotels, chalet companies, to restaurants, to ski hire, to transfers, so between the train station and Morzine, the resort of Morzine. So in all of those places, people who come by train can now benefit from a 10% or more discount from each of those activities.
Great. So if you're traveling by train on your journey to Morzine, then you can get hold of this discount card somehow and enable all of these discounts. And it applies from now, does it?
Yeah, it applies from now. So if anyone who is traveling by train wants to take part, or if you haven't yet booked your travel, then look at the train option. What you then do in order to make the most of this, to qualify, you need to send your train tickets to us at Montagne Verte. We'll check them over, and then we'll issue you with a QR code, a green QR code. And then you take that QR code to the participating businesses and you get your discount.
Wow, I like that. Sounds very high tech. And presumably, so where would they go to? What website address would they go to do that?
So it's montagnevertemorzine.com, and perhaps you could put a link in the show notes rather than me spelling it all out in front of you.
I certainly will. And this is part of two-stage journey towards promoting train travel to the area, isn't it? Because my understanding is, and I think I've talked about this before on the podcast, that there is discussion in the same way as there's a charter train that goes from London to Bourg Saint-Maurice, that you're looking to try and create some kind of charter train that would go from Lille to Cluse.
That's right. Yes. One of the kind of part two of this is to try and cut out Paris. The Paris changeover is not that easy. It's okay once you know it, but I think it's enough to put a few people off. By chartering a train from Lille, where the Eurostar stops, it then becomes just a simple platform change at Lille, and then you're straight into Cluse, and it's probably a 35-minute drive from Cluse into Morzine. And that is kind of phase two, and it won't be for this winter, obviously, but we're looking at it for next winter.
Yeah, well, I really hope that comes off. Personally, I'd say it's not so difficult getting across Paris, and I'll stick a video in the show notes about how you can get across and do it. But I do understand what you're saying there. that, for me, if the simpler you can make it, the more people will travel by train. And that is true. So if there was a way that you could go direct from Lille, and obviously that would benefit the Dutch and the Dutch and Belgian markets as well, which are also important. I know we tend to think about Britain the whole time, but it's broader than that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Northern Europeans, and that's why we chose the train station of Lille, because a lot of the trains from Belgium and Holland come through that station as well.
Well, I love the work that you're doing at Montagne in terms of trying to make the resort more sustainable, in terms of trying to cut emissions, and certainly in terms of trying to encourage people to travel by train. So, listener, if you're thinking about going out to Morzine, or if you hadn't been thinking about it before, you can save some money by going out there by train this winter. Thanks very much for joining us, Al, and hopefully we'll have you on the show again at some point.
Thanks very much for having me, Ian.
Great. So we're coming to the close now. Reviews and comments are always welcome, wherever you want to leave them. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, social media, or email. I'd just like to read out a few we've received since the last episode. Simon C. On Twitter said, keep up the great work on the podcast. Steve said on Twitter, I enjoyed your chat about Yadmos. Richard Sideways, I think this is on Snowheads. He enjoyed the interview with Graham Bell. And Andrew Brannon on Facebook said he enjoyed the Beijing special. Where else could you hear that? Brilliant. If you didn't listen to our Olympic special, that was a bonus episode I released. You may have noticed, listener, we haven't mentioned the Olympics more than briefly. We will discuss it more. There will be a debrief on it. It's obviously been disappointing that Team GB Snow Sports, haven't won any ski or board medals, and that is a huge disappointment. I think there may be some kind of fallout over that, but we'll discuss that another time. Anonymous on Buy Me a Coffee said, thanks for the great listening. And your campaigning for greener travel, and re-engaging me with all things skiing. As an MBO and a minivan driver for snow time in Meribel in the late 80s, I can relate to your time with Bladen Lines. And listener, some of you might know what MBO stands for. Any of my panel today remember or know what MBO stand for? Well, it technically, I think it was a maintenance and buildings officer, but also referred to as muscle-bound oath by some guests. Now, just a final reminder, Ski Podcast has been nominated as a Best Winter Sports Podcast. Very easy to vote. Go to sportspodcastawards.com. I'd really appreciate it. Help me and the podcast. Enjoy all feedback about the show. So do email the skipodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me at Skipedia and the podcast at the Ski Podcast. But for now, I'd like to thank Switzerland Tourism for sponsoring the show and thank my guest today, Rory Atton from Dewerstone. Thank you, Rory.
Thanks for having me.
Katie Dartford. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks. See you again soon.
Al Morgan from Ski Kit Info.
Thanks, Ian.
And Katie has just popped off, so I'll say goodbye to Katie, and then maybe we'll edit in her goodbye later as well. See you, Katie. Finally, listener, thank you for joining us, and until next time, goodbye.